What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So look, this topic that I'm about to talk about derived from Facebook. I saw a very interesting status asking, what age were you when you became a church dropout? Meaning, what age were you when you officially stopped going to church? So I checked the comment section and I see people listing a variety of different ages, and some when they were very, very much young, and some when they were older, right? And along, they were starting to list the reasons why they stopped going to church as well. So when I analyzed this, I said, man, I got to talk about the reasons why a lot of Black American youth have started to deviate away from the church. And it has to do with several different reasons. One of the reasons I'm going to start off with is the fact that there seems to be a disconnect between Black American youth, not all, but there seems to be a disconnect between some Black American youth and religion in its entirety. Some Black people feel like religion has never helped Black people get out of our problems or issues that we've had in society. So why is that still a cornerstone or, a foundation of our community, right? I've heard people say I heard people say that religion didn't help us during slavery. It didn't help us during Jim Crow America. So why do we still lean on it so heavily? Now, I am not of that ilk or of that belief. I know through a lot of challenges and tribulations that I faced in my life, I didn't overcome those things simply just because of my doing. Now, it helped on some of the stuff that I was doing, but some stuff happened where I could not explain. So I know there is a higher power, that has a calling on my life and my family's life. I know there is a God, and I know there is I know the Most High has been strong and active in my life and my loved one's life without question, right? But some things just happen. Some bad things happen or whatever, but I do believe that in the Most High without question. But some people have deviated away from it. They're like, listen, it's not helping us. They think it's holding us back, so they have started to deviate away from it. Now, there are some other interesting reasons why people have deviated away from church as well. One reason that I notice is that, especially I see it in a lot, and I'm not going to just generalize all of these churches, but I'm telling you right now, growing up, I've been visitors of Baptist churches, and I've seen the way that some of the members of the congregation, how judgmental they are towards other people, especially newcomers to the church. Case in point, you may have a young couple or something, or a young woman who's in church, right? She's having a baby out of wedlock, and the people in the church is sticking their nose up at the woman, looking down on her, snickering, smiling in her face, but talking about her behind her back. She hearing whispers and all that type of stuff, where she's supposed to be in a place where judgment is not, where people are embracive of you, despite the situations and circumstances that you come from, right? Because we all have been sinners in our lifetime, regardless of who you are. And I think sometimes people in church, the people that's so active in church, some of them they forget where they came from, where they started. They forget their humble beginnings, and they start judging people as if they never lived a life of sin, or they never did things wrong, or they never had any type of issues in their life, right? You might see there's some people in church, they see a young couple that's not married, they had a baby, they start sneaking their nose, pointing their nose up at them, sticking their nose up, talking down on them, and making them feel uncomfortable. You might have a person in church that's gay, right? And they feel like when they come in, everybody is just like, and I feel like it. You get people looking at them funny, making all type of remarks, and all different type of stuff. And then what's crazy is that they doing all this type of judgment, but they forget that, hey, your son had a child out of wedlock, your daughter had a child out of wedlock, you had a child out of wedlock, and then you later got married, but you seem to think that now that you've become married, that erases the fact that you had a child out of wedlock. No, that's not how it goes. You got some people in church that live and that are throwing stones but living in glass houses. And that becomes a problem because it's no longer, even though the church, because this is how I was raised, I heard churches always say, come as you are. But we come to see that come as you are means you can come on several conditions. And that's when Black American youth say, oh no, I ain't fooling with that, right? I will say this too, my generation are very vocal about things that they don't like, what they don't like. The generations of the past, and you can call it being respectful, were very respectful. Even when things they didn't like happened, they didn't say too much, they didn't voice it. The grandparents, the parents had them in church and they just dealt with it. A lot of the younger youth, they ain't having it. And they like, listen, I ain't coming here if I'm going to be judged and looked at with a side eye every time I come up in here. So that's a big problem as well. Again, come as you are tends to have conditions, right? Another thing that I have noticed is that a lot of the churches now have become so, like some churches have become a brand almost, right? And there's nothing wrong with a person, your church, you're getting money to pay for certain things and certain services for your church service to be enjoyable, to connect to the youth and so on and so forth. But you have some pastors who are more interested in making their brand bigger, more interested in just bringing in a whole bunch of funds and not connecting to the congregation. And that's when you have a problem. You're like, hold on, this church is a mega church. They on TV. The pastor is on TV all the time. He is on everybody talk show. He is a celebrity, a walking celebrity, right? But he really has no connection to the congregation. He seems almost like a deity himself. And that is a problem, right? Case in point, I'm going to just give you a personal thing. My stepmother, right? She was a member of a very, very famous church in Chicago. This reverend was very famous, all throughout the city, right? And has a big name, still has a big name now. I remember when we were going to his church all the time. I'll be at my father's house. I'd be going to church with her and my siblings, right? We all going to the church and everything, and we, going to service all the time. I started seeing his congregation grow, and he became like a celebrity almost, right? So fast forward, my brother is murdered, right? And my stepmother is having a hard time coping with the death of her child, as any parent would, right? She's having a trouble time doing it. Of course she's crying. She's not in the mood for no Christmas festivities because she's so hurt. My brother was murdered around the holiday season. So after having her troubles and, trying to battle through it, she reaches out to the pastor for counsel. She reaches out to the pastor. She tried to contact him on several occasions. She wrote the pastor. Pastor said he would get back to her. He would, talk to her and counsel her for a loss, so on and so forth. Never hear anything from the pastor. My stepmother reaches out again. Hey, okay, I'm going to get back to you. I surely will. Sure, get back to you. Never reached out again at all. That second time, right? She reaches out again for a third time. And again, the same old, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to get to it. Sorry about that. And my stepmother never hears a thing from this pastor at all. And she's grieving. She's hurting. She's crying. And then she sees that, man, this pastor really is, he's so, and in the midst of him not, reaching back and responding to her 3 different times, she's been crying out, reaching out for help. You know what I mean? And of course, my family, we all helping her as best as possible. You know what I mean? My dad's struggling with the loss of his son too. So all of us are hurting. We trying to help each other. But she's seeking counsel in a place that she feels like is supposed to be like refuge, a place that she's supposed to get spiritual upliftment from a person who is the head of the church, the pastor. She's trying to seek him out, and he's so busy trying to be a celebrity. And that's when she saw that his interest seemed to be more in his brand, in his church's brand, more than his congregation. You know what I mean? And of course, I know people say, oh, he may be a busy man, and that's true. But after 3 times reaching out, and you steady saying you're going to reach out, you steady making promises, you're going to reach out 3 different times, it's done. And my stepmother, she no longer became a member of that church, and she went to another church home, a smaller church home, where she feel like she can, like the pastor didn't have other ulterior motives, basically. The pastor was focused on the congregation and giving the word and not being a celebrity. You know what I mean? And that is a thing too. You have so many pastors out here more interested in being a celebrity more than helping the congregation, right? Then you got some pastors also who believe in do as I say, not as I do, right? They preaching one thing, preaching this, preaching that, and then they live in some of the most, and they talking down on certain lifestyles, and behind closed doors, they live in the same lifestyle that they preaching down on and talking about in disgust, right? They in here judging other people's lifestyles and so on and so forth, but living that very same lifestyle and living it or living an even more heinous lifestyle, right? I remember back, some years back, this had to have been about over 10 years ago, probably like 12 years ago. There was this pastor in Chicago, and man, this dude was a pimp. Seriously, right? He was a pimp. And some people say, well, I don't do this, but some people liken pastors to pimps, the way that they can galvanize a group of people with just by having good vernacular, having a way with words. They can just have people mesmerized, and then they get away with whatever they want to get away with. Well, this pastor was a pastor, but was out here pimping women. You know what I mean? He got arrested and all of that, and his face was plastered all over the news. It was like, damn, like, okay, he's supposed to be the person that everybody leans on for spiritual guidance, and he is out here leaning and stepping on young women. It's not stepping on them figuratively, of course, stepping on young women and leading them down a path of destruction. You know what I mean? So it's like, what the hell? Like, how do you expect? It's hard for some black youth to feel connected to a church when they feel like, man, it's people in the church that's hurting some of the youth. Some of the youth that they're either talking down on or acting like they're trying to uplift, they hurting them in them same situations. So some people find it hard to gravitate to the church home when there's stuff like that, when there's people like that in there, And, some people, they start going to church, and on some instances where they don't make the service, you get those older people in church talking about you as if you committed a sin because you ain't been to church in 2 or 3 weeks. And you may have just been busy or had some things going on in your life personally where you had personal obligations outside the church where you couldn't make it. And people making you feel like you the prime enemy number one because you ain't been to church in 2-3 weeks. It's like, damn, if I can't make the church service, you gonna make me feel like I'm just terrible because I haven't been to church? Like what? How is that a place that you want to call home if you come in and getting looked at funny or talked down upon because you ain't been to church in 2-3 weeks? Like, things happen in people's life where they have other obligations where they're not able to make church. Furthermore, you don't have to go to church, is what I found. You don't have to go to church to have a close connection to God, right? You don't have to go to church to have a close connection to the Most High. You know what I mean? You practice the word, you practice it, you talk to the Most High, you know what I mean? You pray and all of that, and you live the lifestyle according to the Most High, and you can be connected to the Most High, right? But some people feel like if you're not coming into the church service, that's not validation for them that you walking in God's in God's will. You're not walking in or subscribing to God's word. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, huh? Like, no, you don't have to be in the church every single Sunday to be abiding by the laws of the Most High. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but it's some people that feel like, hey, if I don't go to church, maybe I've been in church in a month, people gonna start trying to belittle me about not coming to church. Like, what? And you got some people in church that's worried about the wrong things all across the board where you're like, hold on, right? The pastor out here, you got some people in church, embezzling money and so on and so forth, and then making people feel bad about not putting enough in the offering plate. I will never forget this too, because I'm gonna speak from my experience. My stepfather was a pastor, right? He didn't have no big old church. He had a small congregation. He was really into just giving the word, right? My stepfather passed away in 2012, right? But nonetheless, because he was a pastor, we would go to other people's church services as oh, you come to the service and come check out this service or whatever. So we went to this one service. I never forget this. This man, I don't know, I guess his friend or family friend came to come give a word or give a lesson, right? His friend or something. And everybody gave an offering, a love offering to the speaker. He was a guest speaker at the church. And the pastor got mad and said that ain't enough. And basically was just trying to oh, you can give some more, you can give some more, you can give some more. Like, hold on, bro. Sir, you don't know what people's life circumstances are. How you gonna come up here and tell people what they can give and what they can't give? Like, the sermon ain't continuing. He's saying he ain't gonna stop until he gets a certain amount. Like, what? You know what I mean? And they ended up giving the amount that he wanted to, but I feel like you guilting people into giving money, right? And I feel like they gave what they could give at that point. Mind you, the speaker came after they already gave the love offering to the pastor's speech, right? So he got his friend, his homeboy up here talking and speaking, and now he wants some more money, and he talking about that ain't enough for his homeboy. Like, did you promise him a certain amount, and now you didn't get it? So now you out here. He was really guilt tripping people in the church. And I'm looking at these elderly people reaching into their purse. I'm like, yo, that ain't right. Nah, don't do that. That ain't cool, man. That ain't something that I feel like is right. Some people, you don't know what these people's circumstances are in their household. You don't know what they dealing with. Some people probably ain't got no lights on. But then the pastor trying to make you feel bad about, oh, you need to get some more money. I even read this person say, I saw one person say he stopped going to church when his grandmother was giving all her money to the church, and they was barely having stuff in the house to eat and lights on. I'm like, oh, that's not okay, man. You get some people that the pastors or the people in church, whether it's the deacons, make them feel like they just indebted to a certain amount. Of course, you give some money to your church home to keep the doors open, keep the lights on, so on and so forth, whatever. But like, you ain't got to give your whole check to the church just to, you know what I mean? Like, but you have some people in church that trick people to believe those things. You know what I mean? Then you got, again, some people being there worried about the wrong things. You got earrings on your ear. Why you got them earrings in your ear? You coming to church like, what? I'm coming to get a word. I mean, I'm coming to get the word. Why are you worried about the earrings that I have in my ear? What is that hurting you? How is that messing up your sermon? How is that messing up the word? How can you not deliver the word because I got earrings in my ear? Like, what? I'm coming in here suit and tie and all of that, and you worried about my earrings? You know what I mean? Like, you worried about, yeah, I've been in churches where my earrings ain't what? Brother, I'm in here living life the right way. I ain't out here living foul. I'm in college. Matter of fact, I was degreed up at that point. I had degrees and all of that. And people looking at me crazy because I got earrings in my ear. Like, what? That don't sound right. That's not a good look, man. But nonetheless, despite those different things that can take place in church homes, I never lost my faith in the Most High at all. I never deviated away from it because, like I said before, me and my family have been through certain conditions and situations and trials that you couldn't believe. And yeah, we did some due diligence on our own end, but it was some things that stuff happened we couldn't even explain. Nobody could explain it. But we were able to get out of certain situations. And I couldn't look at I couldn't look at anything but the Most High for the reason why we got out of them certain circumstances, right? And we elevated above those things. So I know God has always had grace over my life and my family's life. Despite some of the things that happened, certain things that went wrong, it was a lot of things that we were in some situations that were shaky and it went right for us. And it went right like off of almost like how did this even happen? Man, so glad it happened. So glad these things came through, man. So despite those certain things that go on in the church homes and go on in some church homes, I never deviated away from it. But those are certain things that can make an individual turn their back on church and say, you know what? Church ain't for me. If come as I am has certain conditions to it, nah, I ain't gonna go to church, right? If I'm gonna be judged and looked at funny because I have a child and I ain't married, I ain't gonna go to church. If I'm gonna be looked at funny because I haven't been to church in 4 weeks, in a month, or whatever, I ain't gonna go to church if I'm gonna get talked about. I ain't gonna go to church if I'm gonna get judged or whatever. Brother got a master's degree and you worried about the earrings in his ear. Like, what? Like, you should be saluting that brother from graduating college or graduating a master's degree and all that. You worry about the earrings in his ear? Like, are you crazy? Are you serious right now? You know what I mean? He's not in there disrespecting nobody. All that. It's just a lot of, and you got people once again in church who forget where they came from and forget where they started. Like I've been to churches where, especially when I was down south, when I was in Arkansas, I saw it. I was in churches where you had some men who were at one point, they were gay, right? At one point they were gay, and then now they turn into live a heterosexual lifestyle, and then you got other gay young men or gay young women coming into the church, and now they looking at them in absolute disgust. Like, hold on, brother, you remember the lifestyle you used to live? So how you coming in here looking at them crazy and talking about them when you live the very same lifestyle they living, that they're currently living? You know what I mean? How are you in here looking snark and looking in disgust like you were like, what? And then when you were living that lifestyle, you felt bad about it, but maybe you got bullied into changing your lifestyle or whatever, or maybe you just found God and feel like you're not supposed to live that lifestyle. Well, who are you to come in and try to shun people when they coming in trying to receive the word. Like that's backwards to me. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people throwing stones and living in glass. It's a lot of people in church that are throwing stones, but they living in a glass house. And that's the problem, man. And that's the reason why some Black American youth have deviated away from the church. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. I'm out. Peace.